Ashley is a certified speech language pathologist with over 13 years of experience, a mom of three, and the owner of Speech at the Beach, a thriving private practice dedicated to helping children reach their communication potential. Her journey has begun as a burnout mom in a role that no longer suited her growing family's needs. Taking a leap of faith, Ashley started as an in home therapist working with private pay clients. 4 years later, Speech at the Beach has grown into a successful brick and mortar practice with six talented therapists, two supportive office staff, and a mission to empower families through strengths based therapy and parent friendly, approachable resources. The practice specializes in Gestalt language processing, literacy therapy for dyslexia, feeding therapy, and AAC. When she's not running her practice or working with families, Ashley enjoys working out, meditating, listening to podcasts, and spending time at the beach with her kids. She is passionate about all things speech, language, and parenting and loves connecting with others to share her expertise and experiences. Ashley, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
We have a lot in common. I feel like everything that you like is some things that I like as well. So, too bad we live far apart, but if we were ever to live close, I feel like we could totally hang out.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell us a little bit about your practice and when it started and what it looks like now.
Okay, I had to look back and get the dates because I figured you would ask. So, right around COVID in 2020 is when things really started to change for my family. I had infant newborn twins.
Wow.
And I was working in an outpatient hospital setting, which I loved, but was not working for that time of my life where, you can't control what's going on. If your kids get sick, you have to take them to the doctor, things come up last minute. There just wasn't the flexibility that I needed at that time. And then COVID hit, so things were changing anyway. And it got me thinking. I had started an Instagram, the speech Instagram, and then I saw, all these other great therapists and their ideas, and I just got inspired. And I ended up connecting to some other therapists, one directly in my area. And she was one of the only people I knew that had a speech private practice. And I reached out to her. Actually, probably because I listened to a podcast that told me to take chances and start reaching out to other people that are doing similar things that you want to be doing. And so I reached out to her just hoping she could give me some tips or wisdom, and we ended up being really great friends. She hired me part-time, and that's what jump started me leaving my full-time position to then working for her part-time and starting my own private practice.
That's such a cool story. And how was she when you branched off and did your own thing? Did that go over well or how is that now?
Yeah, so we were very upfront the whole time. She knew that that's what I always wanted to do, was to grow my business and then probably move to, she had a brick and mortar, and then that was kind of like my end game. So we're very supportive of each other. I still refer to her and she'll refer to me. She's in like the city over from me.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I have a friend like that too. And I feel like we both have our specialties. So we're constantly referring out to one another. But she's like given me so many good tips over the years because her practice is doing really well.
Yeah.
So I understand that. And that, there's so many clients, there's so many wait lists. Like it doesn't help anybody to gatekeep or not
No.
refer out. So I really like that you shared that and that it's working for you both.
Yeah. I will mention my husband also played a huge role in getting me started. I freak out with change. So he definitely gave me a push, like, you can do it. I was looking back at dates and I saw he got my business license, like, surprised me with it July 2020. Then I signed the contract with my friend in October 2020. So he has always seen this vision, and he's in marketing and advertising, so he did my website and things like that. So he's been a huge factor in everything as well.
That's amazing. I love that that was his gift to you. That's so cool. So I'm sure that inspired you to get going with a business, but made you want to start the business and what was a driving force behind taking the leap into entrepreneurship?
I think as a mother, just that pull to have some flexibility. I felt like I did not have any say in my schedule. And I just remember like my one of my infants was really, really sick and I had to go to work. And I just will never forget that feeling. And I never want anyone to have to feel that way.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure any parent who's listening to this has been there before, and it's
Yeah.
really hard to leave your baby when they're not feeling well, and especially when you are not passionate about what you're doing. I think if you're passionate about what you're doing, you can kind of justify that this is how we make a living and how I get to take care of you. But if you're not passionate about what you're doing, that just adds like an extra layer. So thank you for sharing that. So, how has your therapy style changed since the beginning when you started as a therapist 13 years ago?
I would say it's probably totally different. I remember doing things like hand over hand, definitely not introducing AAC as early as I do now. It was more of the medical approach of deficit were talked about first versus strengths based. Lots of things that I wish I could go back and tell myself, "Hey, let's do it this way." But you live and you learn and then you change. So I would say a huge approach for our private practice is using strengths based approaches, very, very intimate. It's an intimate setting. So we like to know everybody's name and greet them by name and have the parents be a part of the plans of cares and if there's a particular sibling's name or the dog's name that we want to work on, like let's add that to the AAC device or let's practice that in the articulation targets. So another big thing was getting trained in the meaningful speech course. That changed my therapy so much. And I'm really passionate about all of my therapists also getting trained. So that's it. Every time I hire someone, like, and you will also be getting the meaningful speech course. And then they all complete that. And it's been so great to have consistent care by all of our therapists.
That's great. It's great that you provide that for your therapist. I know it's really hard when you're trying to explain something to somebody, but they actually haven't done the work themselves to learn more about it. There's always like a block. I feel like they actually have to go through that training as well, whether it's meaningful speech or anything. I'm actually having that issue with copywriters right now where there's a couple of different books or marketing programs that I've done that are transformative. And so trying to find a copywriter that has also done those or is willing to learn more has been really challenging. But I think I found somebody, which is really great.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So how do you stay motivated and continue to move forward in your business?
Recently, I just did a reel on this, but I have gotten really good about prioritizing me time. So I get up in the morning really early before my kids, before everyone, and try to do like a gratitude meditation and do some kind of movement. Moving my body really helps me. I think I'm most anxious in the morning. So getting movement helps me regulate and just get into my best state for my kids and then also for therapy because I still treat as well. And then, being a boss, I guess. It's so weird to even consider myself as a boss, but, being there for my employees if something does come up and just being able to be there with a clear head, that's been really transformative for me.
Yeah, those are great tips. Is this something that you've recently started or you've been doing for a while now?
I would say once I had my son, so I had twins and then had my son, he's 3. So they're all pretty young. My girls are about to turn 6. So about 3 years ago, I was really feeling overwhelmed and I started therapy and I just remember her being like, a few things she told me was like, okay, bring down your expectations. Because I was like, I need to be perfect at this and this. And, I had like a 2-month old, and I'm like, but I need to get back to work and I'm doing this and I need to be posting on my Instagram and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, it's going to be okay. And I was really triggered if my kids were sick was another huge thing that I like struggled so much with. I think as women, we struggle with things we can't always control and we feel like it's our fault. And I remember my therapist being like, so how do you respond? How do you let a parent know if your child is sick and you're not going to be able to have this session? And I would be like, oh, I'm so sorry, but my child is sick today. And she's like, what are you sorry for? Are you like on a beach somewhere? Like, you can't control it. Like maybe work on your wording. And so she taught me like how to just change the way you talk to others and yourself. Instead of saying, I'm sorry, saying, my child is sick. Can I reschedule you to later in the week? And something that small really impacted me. And
Yeah,
it
that's
sounds so much more professional too. When she said it,
yeah.
I was like, gosh, that sounds so much more professional than I'm over here like, I'm so sorry. Like, no.
Yeah. I heard recently, or I don't know if it was recently, but I've heard too that when you're like apologizing, you're kind of making it about you versus like just being appreciative that that person is understanding. So instead of saying sorry, like you mentioned, may I reschedule? And once they do, just like, oh, thank you so much for your understanding. Instead of like, I'm so sorry that we had to do this. Thank you. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
It definitely helps shift the appreciation back to that person, versus like kind of making it about you and your excuses, but they're very valid excuses. And like you said, not something that you can control. So
Yeah, I think taking the blame, it was like I felt a lot of blame on myself, but it was things I couldn't control. So that's been something that helped me.
good. I'm glad to hear that. So you grew your private practice pretty quickly. What do you think helped with that?
I guess it's been about over 4 years. And in the beginning, it was not, I would say it's been quickest like the last 2 years. So in the beginning, like I said, I was doing it like 2 days a week and then working for someone else 2 days a week. And I started with pretty much all in-home private pay while I was also trying to get credentialed with insurances. So that was kind of like hand in hand. I also did screenings at some private schools in the area. So I got in with a few schools where I would see sometimes just one child, but other times, 4 or 5. And that really helped get things going. And so once I had a pretty consistent schedule for my private practice, I think it really was about 2 years when I was working with my friend Alyssa. I actually got pregnant with my son when I started with her, which is a whole nother story because I struggled to get pregnant with my twin girls. And then I don't know if it was partly like the reduction of stress and all of
Yeah.
that. So, anyway, that probably prolonged a little bit, the journey of going totally on my own. But I would say probably 2 years where I was totally on my own. And then I was getting in with insurances. And then once I got in with insurances, a lot more clients were able to use my services. And right around that time is when I looked into getting the brick and mortar and hired one of my best friends. So that was like the brick and mortar was about a year and a half ago. And then a month in, I hired one of my best friends and she started with me. So that's been so, so awesome. And then funny enough, one of my old clients' mothers reached out and was like, "Hey, I see you're growing. Do you need any support like in the office or with insurance?" And it was like meant to be because I was doing all of that and
Wow.
treating. So that was huge. She started with us and then it started growing pretty quickly after that. I hired my next therapist in March. I hired an amazing CF in July. And then this January was probably my most at one time. We had a new therapist start in January, a new office person also start in January. And then I have another therapist coming next week.
Wow.
So
That's
this has
amazing.
been like a boom, boom, boom time.
Yeah. So you felt like insurance was, like, instrumental in the growth, like, of your business in the last 2 years, you think?
Yeah, I think it's just accessibility for everyone. And, even the most wealthy person wants to use their insurance usually, which I don't
Y
blame them.
yeah. So are you taking Medicaid as well, or is it, like,
Mhm.
commercial insurance? Medicaid as well? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you find that the pay is equitable? I wouldn't say equitable, but that it works out versus the private pay? Because I know you can see less clients with private pay, but then sometimes there's not that consistency. So how are you balancing that?
I would say yes. It for me, I was traveling so much that the time it took to travel made it more difficult, I would say. So now I'm in a brick and mortar and I can see double of what I was seeing when I was traveling. And I would say it's pretty comparable most of the time. There are definitely exceptions. There are some insurances that it is really difficult just with how low the reimbursements are. And there are challenges for sure with like delayed payments and things like that. We're going through something right now. I think it's nationwide, but you have to take the good with the bad. When the insurance is going good, it's great and you're able to, have wonderful employees and give them what I wanted originally and have more of a work-life balance. So take the good with the bad, I guess.
Oh, that's good insight. What do you think is key to keeping employees or just making them happy and have that work life balance? Because it seems like you prioritize that.
Yeah, I am big on telling people if they're doing a good job. I just think that goes so far. Even just an email like, wow, I'm so impressed you got all your notes done. Or wow, I saw so and so in the hallway and they're thriving. I heard them using two-word phrases. You're doing an amazing job. Just little things like that. And I think me being a therapist, I know how much that means. I don't know, from my previous experiences. And we'll occasionally do like a little lunch or a Starbucks pick me up. I feel like those little things really make a difference. And then at Christmas, we did like a little Christmas party together and try to do little bonding activities.
Nice. I love those ideas. It makes the therapist feel seen,
Yeah.
which a lot of places I feel like therapists are not seen and not understood. So I love that you're doing those little things. Amazing. Anything else you want to share before we wrap up today?
I guess I wanted to do this because I remember when I was just trying to figure out how to get started and I was listening to other podcasts. So I guess if I can help anyone, I'm open to that. I love talking about it and I love talking about my journey. So if anyone wants to get in contact with me, they can as well.
That's amazing. Where can everybody find and connect with you?
The best place would probably be just on my Instagram. It's at Speech in VA Beach.
Love it.
Yeah.
So cute. Ashley, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking to you and learning about your journey. And I am excited to keep following along.
Thank you so much for having me.